know what's going on, guys, but I think this is some kind of freaking conspiracy between YouTube and the UFC and WME, and I don't know who the hell's involved in this. Maybe even Trump or Hillary Clinton. I don't know how deep this goes. I don't think you can understand what's going on here, Dutch guy. What the fuck is going on right now?
Yes, man. I'm sorry to the viewers, but first we go live on my channel. I capture white sound, your sound. My sound was having problems.
I'd like to take this time to apologize to absolutely fucking nobody, because this is all YouTube's fault, and I'll apologize for YouTube and I'll apologize for UFC and WME. But they're fucking with this right now. Wyatt, I think you're the calmest guy right now. Why don't you break down the Johnny Walker fight for us?
Sounds like a plan, my man. So, first fight that we're going to discuss here is the Johnny Walker fight. So, Johnny Walker fought Misha Cirkunov. Fight opened up with Cirkunov landing what looked to be quite a good leg kick, and with Johnny Walker's usual theatrics, pretended that it hurt. We don't actually know if it did. Walker proceeded to do his crazy feints, and then out of nowhere came that flying knee, hammer fist victory, and that was that.
That was absolutely crazy. I kind of thought that Johnny Walker was being thrown in over his head, to be honest, on this one.
Yeah, we discussed that last week, and we both had the feeling Johnny Walker was this was too big of a step up for Walker, but he delivered again.
Yep, absolutely. He even if he's not more skilled, just that athletic nature, just an athletic freak. Completely dismantled Misha, who's been known to be a little bit on the chinny side, and that showed not last night, 2 nights ago.
Yeah, for sure, man. But the power of Walker should not be underestimated, because look at how fast and how easy he gets his KOs.
Who do you want to see him fight next, Dutch? Who do you think he should fight next?
I think it's Dominic Reyes is in the mix.
I've heard that name. I like that name. What?
I don't see any other opponent for him now.
I think that's pretty much it.
I personally feel that Johnny Walker should be given not an up-and-comer. Like, if you want to give him like a up-and-comer like Dominic Reyes, one of those guys is going to be on the downhill afterwards. I could see you giving him like a Shogun Hua, a big name that is likely kind of just fed to him that he's going to win en route to the title. If you get him in there with guys like Alexander Ratchik, guys like Dominic Reyes, then it's going to be one of their downfalls, and I don't really want to see that this early.
Yeah, that's a good point, but Dominic Reyes is still undefeated, if I remember correct.
That's a very good point, and that's kind of how they took Anthony Johnson this time, but Anthony Johnson had also paid his dues before that. But I like that point you bring up. I think boxing does that much better than the UFC. I think Strikeforce does that much better, growing their talent and not exposing them too early. But a lot of people like it the other way as well. They say give them the tough fights.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and also I think UFC is desperate in need for some stars, so they've gonna fast track people now. That's what's happening now.
I see Johnny Walker as being definitely a possibly big star, and I would do exactly what Wyatt said. I would give him some of those household names so the fly-by fans, not the hardcores, get to know who he is. Oh, wow, he just knocked out Shogun Hua, like you said. Oh, wow, he just knocked out, fill in the blank 205er.
What's his rank currently?
He was ranked 14 going into this one.
Yeah, 14 or 15. They haven't updated the rankings yet, so I'm not exactly sure where they'll put him. I'm not sure if they'll break top 10 or not. But I'm not against seeing him against top competition like Reyes. But if they were to do that, I'd like to see it be a #1 contender fight. Another option, which I think is a little bit too soon, I don't think it's too soon for a guy like Reyes, but for Walker at this point would be somebody like Alexander Gustafsson.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to cut into it yet because I think we'll go into it more after the Jones fight, but in my mind, Santos has to have the next shot.
I agree.
Yeah, Thiago Santos also good. I think that's the best matchup to make.
I think
all right, guys, let's move on here. So, Mike, if you want to break down the Zabit versus Stevens fight.
Yeah, we picked this fight because this is another up-and-comer that is similarly ranked to Johnny Walker. I think he was right there, hovering around 13, 15. This fight kind of went, I think, like most of it thought it would. Zabit would be a creative striker. Jeremy Stevens' shot would be on his feet with a big shot, and Jeremy Stevens didn't land that shot. And honestly, I think we've seen more, just more things from Zabit than we ever have. It seems like every time he goes out, he's more creative. We see new things from him, and every time I see him fight, I think he's progressing at a great pace. I think he's better than the time before.
Yeah, I agree. I think a really cool fight, which is kind of a fantasy fight. I don't really want to see it happen, but I'm very curious as to who would win would be Zabit versus Renato Moicano. I would probably edge Zabit there, but I think that's a very fun fight between two very similar fighters.
And I think that fight's going to happen eventually. And I think Renato's going to take over that division, and Zabit's going to challenge him for it.
What do you think, Dutch?
Yeah, I think Zabit really good fighter. A lot of flashy techniques, but his power. I think there's a problem with his power because he's not having a lot of power. But for sure, very good upcoming fighter, and for sure he will be a top 3 end of this year.
Well, if Dana cared about power, I don't think you would have put Kamaru Usman up against Tyron Woodley. So.
Very true.
All right, Wyatt. You want to get into the next fight? Let's go into Askren and Lawler.
Sounds good. So this is definitely the most controversial fight of the night, in my opinion. So we had Robbie Lawler. A lot of people aren't commenting on this, but Robbie Lawler looked more jacked than I've ever seen him. That guy looks swole as hell. Obviously, Askren, a very different build, shall we say. But this fight started off, Askren ducked under a big hook, was trying to take Robbie down. However, great sprawl by Robbie. They continued grappling for a mere number of seconds until Robbie just picked him up and threw him on his head, something that I certainly didn't expect to see, and I don't believe anybody else did. So Ben was kind of discombobulated there. Robbie started teeing off on him, became a big bloody mess, and Ben ended up in the clinch later on in the fight along the fence. He got a bulldog choke, which I still don't know if was locked in or not. Robbie's arm flopped down, making it look like the fight was over. Herb Dean was asking him if he was okay. No response. They stopped the fight. Robbie right afterwards, was totally fine, said, like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, I'm still here. I'm still good to go. In the replay, you can see Robbie give the thumbs up. I don't know exactly what happened, but I wouldn't be mad at running that one back, personally.
No, I think it has to be. And Herb Dean, it looked to me like he was actually apologizing. That he was saying he screwed up. Did you get the same picture?
Yeah, I think so. Go ahead, Dutch, though.
I definitely think Robbie was not out because when the fight was stopped, he immediately stood up. And when you're choked out and you're coming by, you're not immediately standing up.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point. The only experience I have personally is like in judo. I mean, I was never choked out. They called us up so quick. There was one time I was about to go out and I was thinking about tapping, and they actually called us up because that's just how stupid judo judges are sometimes. But I actually did get a guy in a choke, and he wasn't, either he thought he had more time, he didn't tap, whatever the deal was, he passed out. and he was out for several minutes. They had paramedics. I think this is generally what we see when people go out completely, though, doesn't it? What do you think? Why do you think guys are usually out for a little while?
I think it very much depends. I think if you have a great ref in there and they stop it as soon as he's unconscious, which is often pretty difficult to see exactly when that happens, then they'll usually come about in the next 10 seconds or less. But especially when that choke's been held, whether it's 2, 3, maybe 5, 10 seconds too long, they're going to be out a very long time.
Good point.
Yeah, I think they got to run it back, though. I'm a little upset with Ben Askren for saying he doesn't want that fight. I mean, he immediately started calling other guys out and basically said that Robbie Lawler's an animal. I just went through hell. I don't want to fight him again. Give me a top 5.
Which I do understand that, though, because anytime you have a rematch, if you look at like Woodley, Wonder Boy, or any rematch, whether it be boxing or MMA, it doesn't do that much for your career, especially if you're on Ben's side where you did get the victory. Fighting again, like, I don't think he's going to have a crazy dominant win over Robbie regardless. You can't really do much better. You're going to get beat up again, and it's a long time frame. And I think Ben's almost 35 years old now, has been competing for a long time. So I do understand his perspective. I do understand Robbie's perspective. And I do understand Dana's perspective in it being a crazy fight, you wanting to run it back, and with all that controversy, it just adds to people wanting to see it again.
Yeah, I think it is. I think you're right. Ben Askren has no incentive for that fight again. Obviously, Robbie has a lot of incentive, and he has a good argument there. And I would like to see this, if they're able to see it definitive, I would like to see the first decision made from some kind of instant replay. I don't know if you can actually overturn a decision, or you change a rule and you maybe add, a rematch clause where they make them rematch. I don't know what you can do there, but I think they need to use that replay more. I think we could have definitely gotten more camera angles, and I just don't think we got the full story that we deserved.
Yeah.
Man, for sure. But there was Bob Bennett from the commission after the event in the press conference. He talked about that, and he said the instant replay is agreed on. They voted on it, and it's agreed on, and it will be implemented within a short time. So we get instant replay.
Oh, I didn't see that. I'll have to look up a story on that. I know the rules have been recently that if they use instant replay, then they have to stop the fight, which is retarded.
That's ridiculous, man.
Yeah, I agree. That's ridiculous. The other thing you guys have to keep in mind, which I believe was in the post-fight press conference, was one of the commissioners, I believe it was the guy you mentioned, Dutch, came out and said that there was no question Robbie Lawler was out. It was a just stoppage. There's no need for any further investigation. And to me, that really just says the commission has to pick a strong side on one end or the other, because if they're like us in the middle, don't exactly know what happened, then that looks really bad for them, because these guys are supposed to be professionals who know exactly what's going on at all times in their given sport, and to say, I don't know what happened, is going to look really bad for them.
Yeah, and I don't know if you have Fight Pass, you guys have, but I have Fight Pass. They have a neat little thing. It doesn't look like they had it for the pay-per-view, but they have a thing where you can watch from 6 different angles. And if we can do that, obviously they can do that. So I'm not sure why we didn't get more angles, and I'm not sure why we don't have a more definitive answer, because it seems like they should be able to figure it out.
Yeah, conspiracy theory. Anyway, Mike, why don't you move on to this beatdown that we got coming up next?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, Tyron Woodley and Kamaru Usman. I don't think I've ever been so wrong and so surprised on a fight as that. If I was the odds maker on that, I probably would have made Woodley a 6-1 odds. I missed this
Holy
by
crap.
I missed this by a mile. I gave Kamaru Usman. I just thought he's got no power. He's gonna try to strike with Tyron, and Tyron's gonna blast him, and that's gonna be it. I really did not give Usman much of a shot. He didn't try to ever engage in the striking like he did with Rafael dos Anjos. And whatever was going on with Tyron, he said he had no excuses. But that's not a Tyron Woodley that I've ever seen. Was not the same fighter in there that night. And I have no idea if he's doing too much on the side. They kind of use that excuse with Ronda. But, I mean, it is a real thing that people can get distracted. I mean, you're going in there against the best fighters in the world. You should probably have your best possible training camp.
Yeah, when I did a prediction video for UFC 235, and I mentioned in that video that this was by far the hardest fight for me to call. I thought it should have been near pick'em odds, which it was close, but I thought it should have been even closer. I thought a big factor, as Mike has been saying, was we don't know how focused Tyron can really be because he's doing so many things. Like, he's not like Ronda where he was doing commercials and movies. He was doing commercials, movies, TV shows, podcasts. He was doing all kinds of stuff in the rap game, and an immense amount of time was spent in that. Releasing albums, he has his own businesses. I don't even know how he had time to do anything to do with MMA for this camp. I thought that he looked worse in terms of his physique. Now, he is getting older. That could be part of it. But he's always looked like a superhero, and I thought he looked a little bit less so, especially during weigh-ins compared to usual. I thought this fight was going to go one of a few ways, one of which being that Usman would take over in the later rounds. I didn't expect him to take over from the get-go. I'm very surprised by that. I wouldn't have ever guessed that it would be this just not competitive at all. And very impressed by Kamaru Usman. I don't personally feel Woodley's ever going to be champion again, back to the same level. I feel like his time has passed, and I think he has a lot of other lucrative options to choose from with those things that I mentioned before with movies and whatnot. And I'm very interested to see who Usman fights next. I heard it's Colby. I think that's a great fight.
Yeah, and I think we need to really dig into what's going on with Colby and Kamaru. So I think we need to come back to that after the picks. The only thing I'm going to say about that is, if I'm Tyron Woodley, I'm taking some advice from Nick Diaz, and I'm like, why do I want to get punched in the face for a living when I can do all of these other things? I would never fight again if I was Tyron Woodley. Absolutely not.
100% agree. Absolutely.
Yeah, there's no reason for it. Get your bread, figure out how to make your money on otherwise, and then figure it out. And that takes us to the main event. Why did you have anything to add to that, Dutch guy?
Yeah, I want to take a quick look at the numbers. The numbers are astonishing, man. Woodley only threw 60 strikes in 5 rounds. Usman throws 36 strikes. 336 strikes. Significant strikes. Woodley 34, Usman 141, and also Usman took down Woodley 2 times. He was just inactive, man. He was waiting. He was inactive.
He got that ass beat, baby.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think like GSP said, maybe I think maybe he's just not hungry anymore.
Which is fair, to be honest.
Oh yeah, exactly. Why don't you let's go into the main event though? John Jones and Anthony Smith. Not a lot of people were giving Anthony Smith much of a chance, and talk a little bit about what we seen on Saturday.
Yeah, Jones versus Smith. I thought this was going to be an absolute massacre. I did bet on the fight before the odds got completely out of control. At one point, it was like 14-1 or something absolutely ridiculous, but maybe fair. It was a pretty lackluster fight compared to the massacre in which I was expecting. Jones completely controlled the pace, even after Smith said that the key to beating Jones was to interrupt his rhythm, which he did a grand total of 0 times. Jones took him down later on in the fight. Smith had no answers. He really just curled up into a ball for the last 2 rounds. It was kind of sad, in my opinion. The most eventful thing that happened for the whole fight was Jones throwing an illegal knee. Smith, props to him, didn't take the easy way out, kept fighting. Jones got 2 points taken away, which I've never seen before, so that was a first, but I think a good job done there by Herb Dean. And Jones won an easy, unanimous decision.
Yeah, I think that went fairly how we thought it would. Like you said, not as exciting, and I really don't have much more to add to that fight.
There's not much to really say, to be honest.
No, Dutch. Where do you think Jones should go next from this?
That's a difficult question, man. I think he will be champion for a long time because I'm not seeing anyone at this moment to defeat him.
I think it's Maheta time. I think it's time for some Thiago Santos for him to get his ass beat. But I think he's next in line. I think he's going to lose, but I think there's no question he has to be next.
Yeah, I think so too. And I mean, he had a victory over Anthony Smith. He fought 6 times in like 12.5 months, something ridiculous like that. And he's been in the UFC forever. He's on a crazy winning streak. He's coming off an impressive knockout. If you're going to give it to him, too, give him that hot hand and just continue to replay that knockout. Just like they did with Francis Ngannou before the Stipe fight. Just loop that shit. I don't think UFC uses their videos and their promotion as much as they could sometimes. They did it very good for Francis Ngannou. I think you could make a great promo for John Jones and Santos.
Yep, as do I.
As do I.
Let's go into what in the hell is going on with Colby Covington, though. This has been a crazy week. First, he interrupts interrupts Kamaru Usman's training session with the megaphone before the fight. He confronts Dana White in a casino, which I thought might lose him a title fight. Then he's been all over Kamaru Usman. Since then, now Dana says, yeah, he is next in line, but he's had the interim belt before. What do you guys think of that?
Yeah, man, that's I think he has earned the title fight with it because after the event, Dana immediately said that Covington will fight Usman, and furthermore, he interrupted Dana White on the blackjack table and was live streaming it also. And after the event, he got in a fight with Kamaru Usman in the hotel.
Yeah, I don't personally feel that was really a fight with Kamaru Usman as much as it was just his manager Ali being an absolute jackass, as he always is. I think that was kind of like started up by Ali. I don't think Usman really wanted to do anything. He saw him, but it's just like, yeah, we'll meet in the cage later on. I don't even think Colby was trying to start anything. I think that was almost all Ali. If you guys saw in that little clip they showed, he even punched one of the security guards in the face when he's trying to hit Colby.
Oh, wow.
Like, this dude's out of control.
I did not see that.
You're right. It was another fight. It was an altercation, and Ali. I don't like the guy, man. He's a sneaky rat.
Yeah,
Well,
that's what Connor said. That's for sure.
Well, he's under the commission with Ali. They should fine him.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not a bad idea.
Besides the fact, I mean, that's a criminal act to assault someone outside of the cage. I mean, he should be in a lot of trouble for that.
And as Colby said, he's not even a fighter. Why is this guy swinging punches at fighters who could easily just beat the shit out of him? Like, he's only going to do that with all these security guards around. So that kind of goes back to, like, the Habib and Artem Lovbov thing, where it's great to, like, confront somebody over the internet or when you're with your gang of guys and you have, like, this brand new champion and a bunch of security guards. But, like, what are you going to do if it's just the two of you? Because you know he's not doing anything if it was just him and Colby one-on-one.
Oh, of course not. But that's a very good point you bring up, that he was involved in both of those altercations. I mean, and what easier guy, would you think it would be to set off than Colby Covington? That guy's looking to get his face out there, so you light that fuse, you expect it to ignite.
Yep.
Yep. I agree.
So, were you guys surprised? First, I guess, Wyatt, so we don't go out of order. Were you surprised that Dana said right away that Colby was getting the next shot, or did you think he might actually take it away because Colby was maybe stepping over the line?
I'm somebody who thinks that this sport in general, you should deserve your shot. You shouldn't just give a bunch of theatrics to get it. So I think Colby completely deserves the title shot and should be next in line. However, no, I did not believe that Dana White would give it to him after all the altercations. Obviously, the primary reason for him doing it is to sell more pay-per-views. That's Dana White's #1 priority. But no, I didn't expect him to do it, and I'm kind of glad that he's getting the shot in which he rightfully deserves.
How about you, Dutch? What do you have to add to that?
Yes, he turned down 3 title fights for obvious reasons, and now he's getting the title fight. But I agree with Wyatt. He should be next in line because he's the interim belt holder. But that's also not guaranteed to get the title fight, as we know. So. I have to agree with Wyatt. He's the one who deserves the shot.
Yeah, and not to go off on a tangent, guys, but like the most deserving guy ever, who, by the way, I'm not a fan of, and I think he's extremely overrated. Nobody else seems to agree with me on that. Is Tony Ferguson. This guy's so deserving and just gets screwed over and over and over again. Like, I feel he turned down the fight for the interim championship because he's already won it. The guy wants the real belt, and it doesn't seem like he's ever going to get it. So I hope he gets compensated for it in some way in the future.
Yeah, what's he gonna win? Fighting for the interim belt again? That's silly, man. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, Dutch, and I'm learning a lot through all these things. We learned about how fighters get cut. Another thing I also learned that I didn't know is that interim title holders get pay-per-view points.
Yeah, I heard that as well. I think that's great. Makes it more meaningful for sure.
Yeah, but like you said, Tony should be in there. What I think should happen is I love Khabib Nurmagomedov. And honestly, I think a lot of what he did to Conor McGregor for as long as Conor pushed him, he had to have known that was coming, and he really didn't seem upset about it. I kind of thought he got what he asked for. But if he's really not going to fight till November, I think you strip him, and I think Tony Ferguson fights the winner of Dustin Poirier versus Max Holloway for the actual title.
Yeah, I honestly don't feel like he got his ass beat enough. I'm a bit of a Conor McGregor hater, and as all my closer friends know, I have always wanted this guy to be in a 3v1 gauntlet match where first he has to fight Ngannou, this being Conor, then he has to fight Woodley, and then Khabib can beat the fuck out of him at the end of it all.
Oh my god. I did not realize your disdain for Conor McGregor went quite that deep.
Oh yeah, baby.
I understand what the guy's doing in there sometimes. I think the guy's head has gotten too big for him. I just kind of put myself in Khabib's place, and I'm like, yeah, somebody talks that much shit about my family, you're going to get a little more than your normal ass whooping.
Especially when you're Khabib and you're a very religious person who has all this money but still chooses to live with his parents, with his wife, and just it's a different story if he were to do that to him versus any of us.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. He's very humble, and he's actually a big star in the UFC, but also in his own country, and he's still he's not changed in his personality at all. So I think it's a good guy. And about Conor, Mike knows I am with Wyatt again. I am also a big Conor hater. Nothing to say about his skills, but his personality doesn't suit me.
With you, man.
Yeah, I think he's, and I'm guilty of this as well. I kind of feel like maybe he's in a little bit of a Mike Tyson complex, and for whatever reason, myself included, we gave Mike Tyson a pass. I mean, I practically freaking worshipped Mike Tyson as a kid, and the guy did so many horrible things, and you never see me say anything almost but good things about him. So for me to, I think, 100% bash Conor, I may be being a little hypocritical. I understand a little bit of it sometimes, and I'm not sure why we feel that differently about him. Maybe it's just that fear that Tyson possesses, and Conor, it's just more like he's kind of this punk talking all this shit.
One thing I do want to add, though, just to clarify, I don't, hate this guy for, who he is. I don't hate Conor McGregor because, he's an awful person and I'd rather him be dead or some crazy thing like that. I love to hate Conor McGregor. I watch all this guy's fights because I want to see him lose. Just like in the WWE with, heel turns or however that works where they want you to not like certain guys. I think Conor's done a very, very good job with some people like myself who tune in because we want to see him lose.
The ultimate place to be. You nailed it right there. You look at Floyd Mayweather and people are like, oh, Floyd Money Mayweather, he makes all these millions. When he was Pretty Boy Floyd, nobody was paying to see him fight. He was literally selling 125,000 pay-per-views against very good fighters. He turns the heel, everybody starts paying to see him lose. Conor has both sides of it. If he can just get his shit together on the skills part of it and actually compete with the top fighters in the world, which I'm not so sure he's at that level right now. There's a lot of big money fights out there for him for sure.
I think two things are important here. One, Conor McGregor is Dana's golden boy, as we all know. And two, I think the UFC helped with the downfall of Conor to let him fight Mayweather and get all the attention and all the millions, and after that it was fast going downhill with him.
Yeah, just a last thing to add, and I don't really want to get too deep into McGregor, that's not really the point of what we're trying to talk about here today, but with regards to the bus incident with Khabib, I think that and other things, but primarily that, it needs to be punished a lot more firmly. You see other guys do things that are significantly, they're not even close to as bad, and they're banned from the UFC for the rest of their lives. And just because, as you said, Dutch, Conor McGregor is Dana White's golden boy, and as a result of that, he gets special privilege, as I feel John Jones does as well, due to, the picograms and the cocaine and all this other stuff with steroids. I think these guys need to be punished, everybody the same. The fact that these guys get special privilege, that's one of the reasons why I don't like either of them.
Absolutely agree, man. It's inconsistent from the UFC to punish the big pay-per-view sellers otherwise than the little fighters.
And I appreciate you trying to keep us on track, Wyatt, but I want to know one more thing about Conor McGregor, and I'm going to start this off with that bus incident, the UFC running these promos and stuff. I mean, did they really expect us to... Was that staged or what? I mean, I think that there is a good possibility. I'm not accusing them. I can't prove it. But for us to think that there is no possibility that the UFC thought that that was going to happen or knew that it was going to happen, I think we would be naive in thinking that.
Which disgusts me even more, because the fact that it was staged and it most likely just went too far with guys like Michael Chiesa getting hurt and bloodied up, guys like Ray Borg getting glass in his freaking eyeball. People like Rose Namajunas having PTSD from the event, because none of these people knew this was going to happen. If the UFC staged this, that just disgusts me further, and I agree with you. I think there's a fairly good possibility that that is true.
What do you think, Dutch?
I heard Khabib in an interview that a UFC executive, one day before the incident called him to come only with a crew of 3 people, and which he normally comes with a crew of 15 people. It's on the internet. You can look it up. So
really, I'll have to look that up, because I don't know if I'm misremembering something or it was scrubbed. But either one of you guys can answer that. Do you guys remember Dana White starting to talk? I thought it was in Amsterdam. He was starting to talk, and a reporter started accusing him of staging that entire thing. And I cannot even find it on the internet now.
I haven't seen it, so I can't comment.
Do you remember that, Dutch, or am I making things up?
I never saw that particular interview, but I have a strong feeling it was set up, because how you gonna come in also with a crew of 30 people and
go ahead.
And go to the loading docks, which are situated on the -2 level.
So the Combat Hour says, sorry to interrupt, but the Combat Hour on our last stream, he says, great stream, he subscribed.
And I commented on that video saying that we just took over the frickin' Joe Rogan experience. We're the new #1 podcast on YouTube because of the tech difficulties. The Technical Difficulties podcast coming to you live March 4th, first time, weekly, here on out, join the squad.
That Dutch guy's breaking all his mics. The computer, the laptop.
It's what we do, boys. It's what we do.
Yeah,
oh my God.
The problems of the little channels, guys.
That's what I'm saying. You two keeping us down. Maybe we should talk about next week's event, though. Look into that a little bit. We got Derek Lewis versus Junior Dos Santos coming up. I think that's basically the only fight on there that's big coming up. I'm bringing up that card and looking at it right now. Return of Bill Manil Darouche and Tim Bosch, but I really don't see anything big on that one. But Dutch, what do you think about Derek Lewis and Junior Dos Santos? I'm curious.
Yeah, man, Junior Dos Santos last 2 fights looked good and strong, healthy. I think Derek Lewis always has cardio issues, and I'm not seeing Lewis win from Dos Santos. Not gonna happen.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a matchup that very much favors Cingano here. I think Derek Lewis, though, it's the same thing as the majority of his fights, where if he clips you, you're done. So you always got to be very much aware. Junior has taken a hell of a lot of damage from those Kane fights and more recently. So I could see Lewis finishing him here. Of course, I got to pick Junior Dos Santos to win this. I believe it'll be by decision, although it is 5 rounds. So Derek Lewis might fall asleep before we hit that final bell.
That is very true. That's pretty hard to picture. I have a hard time picturing Derek Lewis going 5 rounds with Junior Dos Santos, and I honestly feel very, very sorry for Derek Lewis right now, because I think he's about to get a major ass whooping, and I think it's going to be that much worse because he's a striker. And yeah, Junior Dos Santos, maybe you can tag him on the chin, but I just think he has so many more ways to win. He can hit so hard, and he seems, maybe he's not back in his prime right now, but he's looked pretty good lately. And if he starts hitting him like he hit Mark Hunt in that fight, Derek Lewis is in for a really long night.
Yeah. One other fight which I would like to mention quickly is I believe it's the co-main event, Zaleski dos Santos versus Curtis Millender. This is a great fight, guys, if you aren't familiar with these two. Curtis Millender, very much a striker, very aggressive, a knockout artist for sure. Very athletic guy, very large for the division. And Dos Santos is just a straight, like, I guess you'd say technical brawler. Nothing stops this guy from moving forward. He has a capoeira background, so he's got some crazy spinning shit as well. He's very good on the ground, and that's where his biggest advantage will be over Millender. But I think it's very likely these two guys just stand and bang, and it could honestly be a fight of the year candidate if they're both aggressive.
Well, Curtis Millender has done very well since, I believe, coming out of the Dana White Contender Series. But he's got a second-round knockout over Thiago Alves, not to be confused with Thiago Santos. A lot of Thiagos, but yeah, 3-fight winning streak. Guy has a ton of power. I really wasn't too familiar with Zaleski until I bring him up right now, but he's on a 4-fight winning streak. He's knocked his last 2 opponents out. Sean Strickland in the first round, Luigi in the second round. Last 2 fights before that against Max Griffin and Lyman Good were both fight of the nights. Yeah, I don't see any reason why this shouldn't be a stand and bang out fight, like you say.
Yeah, and Zaleski dos Santos, the only guy I've ever seen who literally made Lyman Good quit. Between the second and third round, Good is this big steroided up monster, right? Like very scary, intimidating looking guy. And he was asking for a way out to his corner, and his corner just said, like, how bad do you want it? Your family's here, and they got him to go back out, which I still think is kind of controversial, whether you should force fighters to go back out. But he was done. He's like, I can't beat this guy. I'm leaving. I'm done with this place. So that shows something about Zaleski dos Santos.
I think that it's a huge issue, corners telling guys to go off and not to get derided. That's a big point for me, though, because safety of fighter and fighters making money, I mean, that's the reason I do this channel. I'm an advocate for the fighters first and foremost. And I think the win bonus comes into an issue because your managers and your trainers and stuff, they're not getting paid as well either if you don't get that win. So, unfortunately, they have an incentive to go out there to send these guys out there continuously in one-sided beatings.
Yeah, it's terrible. I think we've talked about it before, Mike, but yeah, I 100% agree. I think we need to see more corners throw in that towel because, let's be real, like in comparison to boxing, we see some terrible stuff. We see guys crucifixed on the ground, getting elbowed in the face, and it's not really the ref's job to stop it when the guy's still conscious with it. We need to see more corners throwing in the towel, stopping the fight in between rounds. Fighter safety should be first and foremost. That's one place that MMA certainly needs to learn from boxing, and that's what I think. What do you think, Dutch?
I think that's a very good point you make, but I think it has to do with also with the bonuses, because I read, or I heard somewhere that if they throw the towel, they're not gonna get paid.
Jeez. Well, I think they should change that rule.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's the problem, because then they not gonna throw any towel when you not get paid. I think that's the problem.
What I remember hearing, and I thought it was from Joe Rogan, I don't want to be 100% quoted on it, but I thought it was from him that he was saying they had more of an incentive because they weren't going to get paid as much if they didn't get the win bonus. I don't know if that insinuates like a percentage of the purse, which makes sense, or just that fighter being more valuable down the road. But I'm going to go as far as to say I think MMA's progressed enough, and I think that the positives outweigh the negatives, or the other way around. I think it's time to get rid of the win bonus.
Yeah, I think that's fair, or at least make it different, because the way it is right now, where for some fighters they're being paid like 10 grand for their fight and they get a 50K win, or not win bonus, but like performance of the night. Like these guys are trying to hurt themselves and make it entertaining so they get paid more. I think that's just wrong.
That's a flaw in the system. Totally agree. There's no balance in the system.
Yeah, I think just like the UFC, and I'll give them a lot of credit. I haven't given Dana White much credit in a long time, and I give him credit. He was with the UFC when they moved towards sanctioning. I think that was a very good move. I think they need to move further towards better fighter pay and taking care of their fighters' health and safety, working in conjunction with the commission, and move that direction. And then maybe then you'll see some of these competitors like Bellator and other places that don't get as much heat, that pay their fighters literally like almost nothing. I mean, Bellator's paying guys, and I realize I'm getting off on a little bit of a tangent, but literally like $1,500 for some fights. That's unacceptable.
Completely. Cost like what, 10 times that to pay for a training camp? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's not a good thing, man. That's not a good development.
No, not at all. So do we want to give definitive picks on Derek Lewis versus Junior Dos Santos for next week? I'm going to call it right off. I'm going to say I think Junior Dos Santos knocks Derek Lewis out in the third round.
Go ahead, Dutch. I need a second.
I'm gonna go with the Dos Santos also, and I'm gonna go with the third round TKO.
I mean, definitely, I got Junior Dos Santos winning this fight. I'll say a fifth round KO.
Okay, yeah. I hope for Derek Lewis's sake he doesn't take that much punishment, because I just see him taking a massive amount of strikes. But so fifth round KO. Me and Dutch both have the third round KO. Let us know down there in the comments what you think of these fights, what you think of our opinions on these recaps, what you want to see more from us on streams like this, or hopefully we get a stream recordings like this.
Recordings, man. We'll never stream again.
Don't say that.
Offended.
It's a conspiracy. All right. Dutch guy, looking forward to next week. What do you think about next week's card? What do you think about going forward for the UFC? Yeah, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, next week's card is not looking that strong, but there are some good fights on it, man. There's Benil Darius versus Drew Dober. I like Drew Dober, very aggressive, good striking. And you got a heavyweight banger, Ivanov versus Ben Rothwell. Also can be a good one. So, after the 235 card, we are a little spoiled. So, this card maybe look not that strong, but I think we're going to see some good fights.
Very, very true. I think that's pretty much everything I have for right now. You have anything else in closing, Wyatt?
Let me just say a quick little thing. So Ben Askren, this guy was super hyped up going into his UFC debut. He was in a very exciting fight, even though he's a very unexciting fighter, so I don't think he's going to lose that much of his fan base. But I think you guys are absolutely crazy, not you guys, just people in public, to think that guys like Kamaru Usman, Colby Covington, Tyron Woodley, which we know won't happen, but those kind of guys would absolutely destroy Ben Askren, because Ben Askren has absolutely no stand-up. Like, worse stand-up than people that have probably boxed for like 3 weeks. And I'm not even trying to exaggerate. It's just maybe he doesn't use it. But when he uses it, it looks absolutely horrendous. One other thing, Anthony Smith, a lot of people, as the UFC does a very good job with advertisements and hyping up fights, they make it seem like Anthony Smith was decent competition for John Jones. I think Anthony Smith is being unbelievably overrated. He was ranked second or third or something ridiculous in the light heavyweight ranks. My next video coming out, which should be out tomorrow, is going to be my opinion on the light heavyweight rankings in the UFC, and you might be surprised where I have Anthony Smith in there. And that's it for me.
All right, guys. Gentlemen, go ahead and stay on, and I got a few things to say to you after the closing, but I do want to apologize in all seriousness to everybody for the issues with the streaming. We're not sure what's going on. Wyatt said some other YouTubers were possibly experiencing some problems with streaming, so it could be on that time, but we value you guys' time, we value your dedication, and I sincerely apologize for anybody that was waiting for that and was basically wasting their time while we were trying to figure out the sound on that. So sorry about that, guys. And that's it for me. We will see you guys again very soon, though. Look on all of our channels. Wyatt Matheson, make sure you're checking him out. I'll have a link down below. You know the Dutch guy at MMA Newsroom. I'm Mike for Fights with Friends. As always, I love you, I respect you, and I'll see your fine asses later.